and on the other hand, people can earn from some that unethical businesses, amassing huge money and trying to convert these huge amassed wealth into a political dispute. Right. So we have to stop all these things and introduce meritocracy. Right.
That's very interesting what you just mentioned about how individuals gather a lot of wealth through unknown means,
Yes.
and then use it to fuel a political campaign or to pave the way into politics. But why aren't any of the mainstream political parties doing anything about it?
Yeah, because this country, the so-called elite, now they are being actually funded and fueled by the these unethically amassed wealth, and these people. Earlier, the politicians are there and Mudalalis are behind it. Now, Mudalalis are the politicians, right? The Javarankaru, we can tell them the Javarankaru, not proper entrepreneurs, right? They are now dominating the political arena as well.
People are rejecting traditional political parties, most of the main political parties, because they seek fresh leadership. And something that is quite apparent is that there's a significant rise in the support for the NPP. How do you see it? Welcome everyone, you're watching Conversations with Alanki. The rising cost of living is a challenge that most Sri Lankans face. Today we will discuss this and much more with the former Minister of Power and Energy, parliamentarian Patali Champika Ranawaka, who is considered by many to be a suitable presidential candidate. Now all this talk comes up while Sri Lanka prepares for an election which is due to be held this year. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for being a part of this conversation. This is my second conversation with you.
Yes.
So as we begin the year, elections are coming up. But before we talk about the elections, I'd like to know, last year was very challenging. And this year there's an increase in VAT, which further adds to the burden of people. And people are finding it very difficult to make ends meet. What are your views on this?
The thing is that actually we know that government revenue, they wanted to simply increase the government revenue by 600 billion. That means each and every person here in Sri Lanka should pay at least 30,000 rupees for this 2024 from this so-called VAT. And the meantime, it should be emphasis that the three revenue agencies like the IRD, the Inland Revenue Department, the Customs, and the Excise Department of Sri Lanka, their defaulted tax, that amount is around 1 trillion, over 1 trillion. So while increasing the VAT, government impose kind of a heavy burden to the people to collect around 600 billion. At the meantime, the defaulted tax that can be collected from these three revenue agencies is around 1,000 billion. So without increasing this VAT, government should, especially the finance ministry, should focus on these three revenue agencies and to collect the proper, that taxes that can be collected, and also at the meantime, I must stress that the around 40% of our financial transactions not being captured or registered. So without increasing VAT and other taxes, government should have a proper financial register in the form of electronic, or say maybe you can say around say the digitalization process. You can simply increase the revenue by 45% to 50%. That was actually evident. You know that last year government introduced this EPIC tax from the specially targeting the professionals. So their target was to collect around 100 billion. But finally, they collected around 150 billion, right? So 50% increase in the tax collection. Why? Because almost all the professionals, their earnings being registered properly and captured properly. So if other transactions, right, being properly captured and properly registered, a similar increase in revenue can be easily expected. That's what happened. So without that streamlining, without having a proper cash register or the financial register in the country, and without focusing the efficiency of the tax collection agencies, government is simply putting the burden to the poor people.
Indeed, and we face this crisis because of very poor economic management and corruption over the years. But why do people have to pay the price now?
Actually, when people, cast their vote, they must think about the future properly. For example, people cast their vote for President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the SLPP in 2019 and 2020. You know the cost during the 5 years ending this 2024, the GDP shrinkage or the economic shrinkage of this country simply causes 100,000 income loss to each people. Income loss to each people. On the other hand, in 2020, comparing 2020 government income level or the revenue level with the 2024 revenue level, the people should pay around another 100,000 as taxes, right? So the value of their vote is around losing 200,000 rupees per person. So the people can complain and other things, but when they cast their votes, they must actually think about uh, the future. Unless otherwise, the innocent people may suffer again and again because of their own actions by way of casting their ballots to the popular figures in the political field.
And that brings me to my next question. A recent survey by the Department of Census and Statistics found that at least 60% of households in Sri Lanka found their monthly average incomes reduced and
Yes.
expenditure increased. So, right now, ever since the current president assumed office, are we on the right track, or could things be done differently so that people won't be so burdened?
Yeah, the statistical department survey clearly says the 60% of the household experienced the income reduction, and at the meantime 90% experience the increase of the expenditure, and 14% of our workforce saying that they lost their jobs. Around 50% saying that they were forced to change their jobs and things like that. So that shows the that the economic crisis and the cost of living problem that the average household is now experiencing. The problem is that we must accept that the current president, by way of implementing the IMF guidelines, somehow managed to stabilize the fiscal position of the country, right? But at what cost? Huge social cost. So we need to grow our economy. Unless we can't repay our debts. So with these electricity tariff, with these fuel charges, with these huge taxes, the country and the economy cannot be able to grow. Now it's in a kind of a standstill situation.
Right.
So in order to move from this, we have to that when the cost of living is high, right, people reduce their consumption. So the reduction of consumption means shrinkage of economy, because production is also going to be less and less. And at the meantime, the main problem is savings. As far as our savings are concerned, in 2017, our savings are around 33%. In 2022, it has been reduced to around 30%. I know in 2023, 2024, it's further reduction compared to the GDP. So no savings means no investment. Right. So it's a kind of a vicious cycle. Less consumption, less production, shrinkage of economy, high prices of consumption, less investment, then shrinkage of economy, and that is the vicious cycle now we are facing. So we have to handle this, because we have two things. No, one side, in order to grow the economy, the resource, there should be a resources. That means the capital and other material resources. On the other hand, it's human resource. So we know that both human resource and the capital is now declining. Our professionals are migrating the country. Students are migrating in a big way. For example, the Australian Education Ministry recently published their data, saying that around 15,000 Sri Lankan students last year migrated to the Australia for higher education purposes. What cost? Some 650 million US dollars. We are talking about the tourist arrivals and all these things, 1.4 million tourist arrivals and all that. But on the other hand, huge leakage of our money going to the other countries, especially the Western countries, by way of students seeking some higher education there, and also the professionals who are migrating. For example, around 800 medical doctors, out of which 350 being the medical consultant, they migrated last year, and also several hundreds of engineers, bankers, university dons, all these people migrated, and also they sell their properties here and convert these things into dollars and migrated. So our human resource is declining, and our capital is declining because savings are not there. So we are having a very serious vicious cycle. So we have to arrest this situation and to grow our economy, unless this can be prevailed in a next decade. Unless we address this issue properly.
And I'd like to know your views on the high electricity bills, which have tremendously burdened people. As the former Minister of Power and Energy, what are your views on this significant increase, given that people's incomes haven't really increased?
Actually, there has been a kind of a responsibility from the government side also, because from 2013, government didn't increase the electricity tariff. So it created kind of a vicious debt cycle for the CEB. And on the other hand, the CEB and the Ministry of Power and Energy, they don't apply how to that reduce their expenditure, how to increase their efficiency, and how to address the that economic situation here in Sri Lanka. For example, now because of this tariff hike, right, the Sri Lankan situation, they are in the industrial sector, our high tariff created kind of atmosphere that the most of the factories are now relocated. They are in Vietnam and other countries because of the less electricity tariff. We are inviting foreign investments to come, but because of this high electricity tariff, people, already the established that factories and manufacturers are now relocating their business to the other countries. As far as the Asia is concerned, we are the third highest tariff in the Asia as far as the industrial sector is concerned. And also commercial sector is concerned. That means banks, hotels, shops and other things. We are the highest. far beyond the Singapore, Hong Kong and Taiwan, right? So you can't run an economy like this. You have to focus on all these economic sector while stabilizing the CEB's financial situation. You have to focus on all these situations. For example, last September, CEB asked 25% of price hike from the PUCSL, and there was a kind of a public hearing, and I proposed them not to increase these things because rainfall is coming, and CEB may may have kind of a windfall profit if we increase this thing by another 25%. Finally, PUCSL increased it by 18%. In my data, around 60 billion excessive profits been earned by the CEB last year. So it's a big mistake from the part of the ministry, part of the government, and the CEB, and also the PUCSL. PUCSL is the regulator, and they have to take care of the consumer with scientific data, and they should be held responsible for this problem. And on the other hand, CEB can easily, with while they can improve their efficiencies, they can reduce their cost. For example, in 2015, when I was assumed duties as Power Energy Minister, I visited the CEB head office on 15th January 2015, and our finance manager told me the expected loss would be around 45 billion that year, 2015. But we analyzed the cost figures, and we simply, stop getting power from 5 power plants, and also introducing new efficiency method, new way of handling the dispatching. Dispatching would be the most important thing. You know the outcome. We reduced the tariff. We reduced tariff by 14%, and outcome would be 20 billion profit, right? So we can reduce these things. And also the fuel tariff, especially the diesel prices are so high. It affected our economy in a very, very bad way. And during my tenure as a Power Energy Minister in 2015, we analyzed the tender procedures, and we found that a lot of malpractices happened, and we opened up it for a competitive bidding. And you know that 69 suppliers were there, only 4 being selected always to supply fuel to the CPC during that time, 2014, 2013. So we open up it. What would be the outcome? Outcome would be around over 60 billion extra money flown to the CPC, and we gave it to the people. We reduced diesel prices from 134 to 95 rupees. We reduced petrol things from 157 to 117, and also the kerosene price from 95 rupees to some 65 rupees. That way we energize the economy while achieving profits for the CPC and other relevant agencies. So I think this is government should reduce electricity tariff, especially there in the industrial sector and the commercial sector, and giving kind of a support to the poor people who are consuming less than 60 units. And at the meantime, government should reduce the diesel prices as well.
And there's a lot of controversy surrounding energy projects being granted to the Adani Group. What are your views on this, and what is the truth behind it?
If we are going to sell this resource in a, giving it to a single company would not benefit Sri Lanka. We should go for a competitive bidding, because Sri Lankan industries are now capable enough to put up wind farms. I think they are putting up things in other countries as well. So we should give them a chance, not to give kind of a single entity, single foreign company to monopolize this resource, because the future is wind here in Sri Lanka as far as the main power supply is concerned, and also the solar power. It should be, I think, distributed type of a thing. And also, we should improve our transmission network to evacuate things, and we can have a proper linkage between India and Sri Lanka to export our energy. But these should be done in a transparent manner, competitive manner, unless otherwise Sri Lanka will suffer again and again with these underhand dealings.
Because there's a lack of transparency.
Very much, very much. The costs are higher than what we have now doing there in MENA.
Right. Moving our focus to the elections, which are due to be held this year, what sort of leadership do you think Sri Lanka needs at this point of time?
The first thing is that we have to actually accept the fact that the traditional parties be now rejected by the people,
Right.
especially during the uprising in 2022. It's a direct action by the people. So any political party, any traditional party can give that traditional election, that they can distribute freebies and telling that we can survive this economy, and we can grow this economy and things like that. But people must know about these things, and they must realize that the media kind of shows can't solve our problem. So they have to properly understand the capacity of the leaders. What are their managerial skills? Almost all the candidates, main parties, representing the main parties, they run the ministries, and they have to show us what kind of achievement they made during their tenure as ministers, right? And how they improve these ministries, how they basically the revenue side, how they increase their revenue, how they expenditure, and how they did their projects in a proper way. So unless that the next election also could be a kind of a media show, and within 6 months people may come to the street and say another go or something, and asking the government to go, because our country is now a bankrupt country, right? And we lost our sovereignty. We lost our sovereignty in 1815 March, 2nd of March, to the British imperialist, and we lost our sovereignty when we declared our country is a bankrupt country in 12th April 2022. So, in order to achieve our sovereignty and in order to salvage this country, we need kind of a professional approach to the problem. The mere populist means the people, the politicians who are actually uh, talking about a very simple solutions to the complex problems. They can say that we are not giving a cent. Uh, the other governments are that responsible for that. We are not going to repay the ISB. We can say that, right? Uh, people say, right, that's the way, right? Others are getting these loans and we are not going to pay. And on the other hand, we can say that we can give every family another 20,000 rupees, things like that. So these are actually very simple solutions to the complex problems like that. Now Sri Lanka, we can see these populist movements gaining momentum because of the poor political literacy and also poor economic literacy by the people. And also the media, especially the mainstream media, are still misleading the people with their own political agendas. So we should focus on professional type of government, how to handle this economy, how to grow this economy, how to improve our dollar earnings. We need new methods to do that. For example, as far as our revenue is concerned, I mean government revenue, we must, as a first step, we must have a kind of electronic platform to do our all financial transactions, right? For example, we can start from transport, right? Uh, I think around 6 million vehicle fleet being registered for the fuel quota, QR. The abolition of fuel quota is, I think, a wrong step. We must add another thing. What? The another thing is people should pay their fuel bills via the QR code. That way, we can handle 1 trillion economy. 1 trillion economy can be captured uh, if we are going to introduce QR code to pay our fuel bills, right? Pay our electricity bills and pay our day-to-day things. So, with these things, when we met a doctor, when we meet a doctor, when we meet a say teacher or consultant, we can pay via the QR or via some other electronic means. That way, we can capture the unregulated market as well. That way, Sri Lankan, that government revenue can be increased by 50%.
Right.
And at the sorry to disturb you. The second thing is, the second step is to digitalize the rupee. We should introduce the cashless country with digitalization the rupee. That's the second step.
We were just talking about what sort of leadership Sri Lanka needs at this point of time. And like you said, people are rejecting traditional political parties, most of the main political parties, because they seek fresh leadership. And something that is quite apparent is that there's a significant rise in the support for the NPP. How do you see this?
Actually, that is because of the system break. On April 12, 2022, country went bankrupt and system break happens, and people actually blaming to the traditional parties for the economic carnage they are now facing. So by default, the NPP is rising as a left-wing populist. Their solutions are very simple to this huge, complex economic crisis, and they don't have, I think, proper experience. When they we experience, we know how they run their ministries during 24 the Mrs. Bandanayaka's Champika Bandanayaka's government, and also the way they present this crisis as a mere that the traditional parties, their leaders robbing the country. That's the main cause of this crisis. Actually, it's a part of the crisis, part of our governance problem. Other thing is that the main thing is that we got uh, non-concessional loans, and we invested these things in a non-revenue making projects. That's what happened to Sri Lanka. And also, we need kind of a broader uh, systematic economic, that kind of a structural change to address this issue. So, having kind of a left-wing slogans, this good, blaming the other political parties and also the so-called capitalist class and all these things. These are good. These are actually left-wing populists, but that won't solve our problem, because the problem is so complex, and we need kind of a pragmatic approach to solving this problem. Unless we will be isolated, if we are not going to pay the ISB, we will be isolated like North Korea and Myanmar or Cuba, right? And also, if we are going to apply the so-called socialist policies like in Cuba. So we, we will be, facing a bigger crisis than this crisis.
All right, before we move on to the final question, I'd like to know how can we bring about a system change?
Actually, we have to change every sphere of our governance. For example, the rule of law,
Mhm.
right? You know that in our judicial system, 18 to 19 years, uh, judicial system need 18 to 19 years to give kind of a final verdict to a court case.
Yeah.
In Japan, it's 3 years. So we have to cut short these things. Almost all the politicians and people are talking about the independence of the judiciary. That's good. But at the meantime, efficiency of the judiciary and the unbiasedness of the judiciary is also important.
Mhm.
So efficiency is what is most, that now we need, mostly need the efficiency of the judiciary. We must have a kind of a system. Within 3 years, we should have a proper verdict to almost all the court cases. So we need the overhauling of the judicial system that is prevailing. And at the meantime, we have to have a proper overhauling and restructuring of the political system as well. This is kind of a father to son, or
Mm.
this is a family bandism, right? And on the other hand, people can earn from some, that unethical businesses, amassing huge money and trying to convert these huge amassed wealth into a political this thing,
Right.
right? So we have to stop all these things and introduce meritocracy, right?
That's very interesting what you just mentioned about how individuals gather a lot of wealth through unknown means,
Yeah.
and then use it to fuel a political campaign or to pave the way into politics. But why aren't any of the mainstream political parties doing anything about this?
Yeah, because this country, the so-called elite, now they are being actually funded and fueled by the, these unethically enmeshed wealth, right? And these people, earlier the politicians are there and Mudalalis are behind them. Now Mudalalis are the politicians, right? The Javarankaru, we can tell them the Javarankaru, not proper entrepreneurs, right? They are now dominating the political arena as well. And this so-called corruption, if you are talking about this corruption, we can see three layers. One is the officials, the other one is the business people, and the other one is the politician. Without this combination, you can't have any corruption here. So in order to eradicate corruption, we must address all three spheres,
Right.
right? And at the meantime, uh, we must change our economic structure. For example, we are still depending on our foreign earnings to few things. One, the tourism. Tourism, its net income is 80%. Sorry, 20%. When we earn $100, $80 being siphoned off from the country by way of importation and other things. So the net income is 20. And the remittances, right? Poor people, poor ladies actually going to the Middle Eastern countries and giving us money to buy our essential things. But our professionals are migrating in a big way, siphoning off our hardly earned dollars to the other countries.
Mhm.
So we have to stop this. And at the meantime, the apparel industry, we are focusing only on apparel industry from 1977 onwards. So we have to somehow restructure our economy. For example, say our agricultural sector and the plantation sector. Around 27% of our workforce is now doing things there in the agricultural sector and the plantation sector. What would be the outcome? Only 7% of the GDP. So it is very inefficient sector.
Mhm.
So we have to increase our productivity, increase our efficiency there in the agricultural sector and the plantation sector. In order to do that, we have to introduce kind of a new technologies, maybe biotechnologies, maybe new water technologies, and other things to improve our efficiency and productivity. The second thing is our service sector. And we are just having this banking and other service sector. It's around 55% of our economy, but we are not focusing on the digital services. We must export digital services to earn more and more, foreign earnings.
Right.
Right. So that's why we introduced this what you call these tech cities. The tech city concept introduced by our ministry in 2017 is to change the economic structure here and to simply convert our existing structure into a new modern smart age structure. So we have to export the digital services, right? So we know that uh, Prime Minister D.S. Senanayaka, Dudley Senanayaka, almost all the Ms. Bandanayaka's government, they are focusing on improving our irrigation system and improving our agriculture. Fine. The British people introduced of us the plantation sector. Fine. We have to improve this thing. And thereafter, President Jaya Jayawardena introduced this this export-oriented type of economy by way of establishing pre-trade zones. Good. We have been earning things from these export things. But it is now declining because other countries are doing pretty well. The Vietnam is doing pretty well. The African countries are doing pretty well. Even the Bangladesh is doing pretty well. So our that our limitations are there. Right. To improve these things. And during Mr. Premadasa's time, he managed to go outside the free trade zone and establish this 200 apparel garment things in and around the country, especially there in the rural area. Good. But most of them are now closed down. Yes. So what would be the next step? Next step is desktop factories, right? This is the smart age thing. A smart age begin in 2015 and we have to somehow address this thing, the desktop factories, how to improve our workforce, especially the young ones, to do kind of a new earnings, I mean the foreign exchange earnings, by way of having desktop factories, right? Right. That way we can earn lot of things, because without government intervention, lot of people are doing the new startups are coming up and they are doing lot of digital type of businesses, but government must invest, like they invest in irrigation, like they invest in ports and airports and the road network and all that. Government must invest uh, to develop the infrastructure. That's why we invested there in Homagama as a tech city, and we were planning to introduce things there in Matara, Kandy and Kilinochchi as well. So if we can produce 80,000 smart workers, we can earn 5 billion US dollars as digital services income.
Interesting ideas. Moving on to the final question. What can we expect? What sort of outcome can we expect from the elections which are due to be held this year? Because there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Actually, uh, these are very chaotic type of things may happen. I think next election uh, we can't predict things right now, because during next 4 or 5 months time, lot of things will be happen, and also the international players also trying to intervene in our election. We can see what happens in Maldives, what happens in Bangladesh, and what happens there in other countries as well. So a lot of things may happen, but I think our people must be fully aware of the situation of the country and of their livelihood, and most importantly for their children, and they should select people who can properly govern this country and somehow salvage this country from this huge crisis that we are facing, and to move forward and grow this country with new ideas and with new vision.
All right. Thank you very much for this conversation and for sharing your thoughts and ideas, Mr. Ranawaka. We have come to the end of this conversation. Remember, it's very important that we have the right conversations with the right people and ask the right questions. So I do hope this was an interesting episode for all of you. I will be back with another episode. Until then, stay safe and take care.